Hi and welcome, Road Dogs. As you see, I'm wearing my protest shirt today to talk about a specific subject. A user by the name of Reach60 made a comment about taxes and paying past taxes and how taxes work and so on and so forth. And this is really what I think of taxes. Because at least our modern tax system, and there's going to be some things, I will try and put these down in the description before it gets posted today. But there are some books that you should read, and I'm going to go ahead and tell you what books books or documentaries you should watch that will really help you understand taxes. The first one you want to read is Lee Bropst. I will go in, I'll find the article specifically on taxation so that you can understand a little bit of how taxes work. The second thing I'm going to recommend to you is a book. It's called Fruit from a Poisonous Tree. Now, this guy is a former Marine, former U.S. attorney turned judge, federal judge, and he's going on a rant about taxes. Now, the reason why I got the book is mainly because of Chapter 2. In Chapter 2, it talks about the birth certificate bomb, but basically he puts maybe a quarter-page effort into that, just discussing it, and he doesn't go into any further detail. To me, I didn't like the book because I didn't care about taxes. I wasn't there about taxation. I already understood what was going on with the taxation system. Actually, I thought I did. Another good documentary always to watch. It will help you understand the history of money, and this is really what got me fascinated with money. Would be the Money Masters. It was put out in the early 90s, so it's a very old documentary. You can find it on YouTube. And lastly, and I have read this multiple times, it is called Modern Money Mechanics. It was put out in 95 by the Chicago Federal Reserve Board. It talks about how money is actually created. If you really want to understand money and how money actually works in our system and understand the reason why the game Monopoly actually came out, these will be some source materials that will help you reach that level of enlightenment to have a full understanding of not only money but the tax system and how economics really works. It's quite fascinating. I mean, I've gone off to study for my Series 6 and Series 7. The only reason why I didn't get my license is because I had too much debt. But let's talk about taxation, and I'm going to use these as my source materials that I just gave you, because this is where I'm pulling a plethora of my knowledge. Now, there are people here in the United States who say, oh, it's because of the 16th Amendment that I have to pay taxes. It was supposed to be a one-year excise tax, and then they took it on forever. That's not true. That is a red herring. That's what they tell you, so that you got to realize that in some ways the government is going to steer the direction and the narrative of certain conspiracy theories, and then that will lead you down a path to where if you become a tax protester because you followed this conspiracy theory, which the 16th Amendment is in truly a conspiracy misinformation. There is no truth in it. It's about as sideways as the flat earthers. So the 16th Amendment has nothing to do with it. The reason why you have to pay taxes, okay, is because of the Interstate Commerce Act of 1887, amended in 1940 to include U.S. citizens as carriers of commerce. Now, why is this significant? This is significant because it's you got to look at when you're dealing with law, you got to look at it in the form of jurisdiction. It's about who has what authority, where, when, and why. And the United States, okay, is the District of Columbia. So if you ever run into somebody and they're like, yeah, I'm a U.S. citizen, or a cop that tries to talk to you about being a U.S. citizen, here's something to understand, and I will talk about this in another video. It sounds like I keep stacking up more videos for me to do, and trying to keep up on the current events as well. So I will try and keep up on all this, guys. The whole thing with the Interstate Commerce Act is that a U.S. citizen is a citizen of the United States. You go look in U.S. Code. There's 27 definitions of the United States, and if you want to like kind of make them all the same, and because they're all various definitions in the way that they write it, but it all works out to about the same territory. And so it is all U.S. territories, the outlying islands, and and federal property. The United States is the District of Columbia. That is a seat of government, and people want to talk about the Constitution, but yet they forget that the United States was supposed to be separate from the several states. And the thing is part of the reason why the Constitution was set up and replaced the Articles of Confederation was to make sure that the states were able to facilitate commerce, which is one of the few constitutional jurisdictional authorities that the United States actually has. And that is to regulate interstate commerce. And so when they take a U.S. citizen, which is a federal citizen, which is a citizen of the United States, not a citizen of the several states, but a citizen of the United States, and they label you as a carrier of commerce, and because you are not in the District of Columbia, but you are essentially the way that the way that the tax system looks at you is that you are a federal citizen traveling abroad. And so wherever you are, that is federal territory, because you are going around. You are property of the federal government. See, the thing is, after the Civil War, is just that slavery never went away. The masters changed. That's it. And that's the reality that people fail to understand. All they did was just change masters. And so with this Interstate Commerce Act of 1887, amended in 1940, coupled with the forming of the IRS in 1950, see, taxes really the way that taxes were done then, before then, and the way that taxes are done after then are completely, totally different. So let me tell you how taxes used to be done. Okay, because everybody had to pay their fair share. The taxation system that we had was actually a fair and just taxation system. So the federal government would run up a bill, and they would agree on that bill, and then they would send the bill to each of the states, and it was based upon population. So everybody, essentially, the bigger states paid more because they had more people, they had more territory. The smaller states paid less because they had less people and less territory. And this is the way that it worked out. So everybody, you and me, we were paying about the same amount in taxes. It didn't matter if I was rich or poor. It didn't matter what status I was in life. You and me, we paid the same amount of taxes, and that's the way it used to be. But the thing is that the federal government wanted to have a bigger budget, and every time they want to go and raise taxes and say, look, well, we need more money because we need to do this, the people are like, no. You're getting enough money from me. I don't want to give you any more, because if you're giving somebody, let's say on average, the average American had to pay $75 a year. And this is before 1950, when $75 was more like about $5,000 today. So you would have to pay, in today's money, let's say about $5,000 per person in taxes. Or if you go look at there's the chart that's online that talks about the money supply and how much money each person owes to pay off the national debt. See, the government was allowed to carry a little bit of debt, but it had to figure in the payments, and it still had to get approval and all these other things. So in order for the federal government to expand its taxation before 1950, they had to do a lot more. By taking it and getting away from that in 1950 and just saying, okay, we're going to have a progressive tax system, that is actually the reason why you pay taxes. Now, there are some caveats to it, to actually paying taxes. They will say to you, oh, well, taxes are voluntary. You don't actually have to pay tax. And you're sitting there going like, yeah, right, I hear of people getting audited. I hear of this, I hear of that. But this is part of the propaganda. There is a great video on YouTube, and if you haven't watched it, it's got like 10 million views. It's called the Mr. Jones, or I think it's called Mr. Jones. I will try and find it. My dad and I listen to it every few years, just because the Jones Plantation. It's an excerpt from a book talking about government, but essentially that is that the Jones Plantation with taxation is what they're doing to you. They want to convince you that it's a choice, but it's not a choice. And as long as they can convince you to go one time, so all you have to do is pay taxes once, file your taxes once, and you are bound for life. Okay. Second thing is, Um, if you never file taxes, they can't do anything for you. Now, when you're going to go in and you do your W-2, you're going to want to file exempt, because you don't pay taxes. You're going to get all your taxes back because you don't pay taxes, and you have the right to do that. But the government doesn't want you to. If you remember, a few years ago, there was a big story about the IRS saying that its biggest fear is that it is losing taxpayers at an alarming rate. Why? Why are people? Because it's still voluntary. See, I paid taxes for. I did it to get into college, and then I did it when I was married. Um, I did it because I thought it was the right thing to do, and I didn't know any better. But here's the thing: if I ever get and since then I have not paid taxes. I refuse to pay taxes. I will not pay taxes for this system. And a lot of the reason why I can say that is because the system has done more harm to me than good. The system has never benefited me. It has hurt me. It has actually caused lifelong ailments and lifelong issues that I will never be able to fully recover from, because the system itself is not only broken, but it's hostile. And this goes back to the Civil War, and I don't want to talk about that. But anyway, so we get this system. But how was the IRS set up? Because we know how the Federal Reserve came out, and there's a book about it. It's called Creature from Jekyll Island. Okay, so in the same way, fruit from a poisonous tree is this way. And he starts talking about how when the IRS was originally set up, it was set up in Puerto Rico because it had to be put in a U.S. territory. There we go, right back to jurisdiction again. So it had to be within U.S. territory. It couldn't be on state territory. It had to be on U.S. territory. Now, the beneficiaries are foreign. It is said that this was possibly set up by the Queen of England, but that's speculation. I haven't found anything concrete on that. But what I will tell you that I have found that I would consider concrete is that it's like, oh God, I can't remember the trust number. It's like trust 42 or 47 or something like that that's set up, and it's a trust. And what happens is all the money goes into that bank account, and when that money goes into the bank account, it sits there for 365 days. And so while that money's sitting there, that's people like you making claims, getting their tax refunds, getting all that stuff. And you think, okay, fine, whatever's left over goes to pay our national debt, goes towards our budget. Well, no, actually, in Money Masters, he points out a speech by Ronald Reagan where he did a report to see how to be more efficient with tax dollars. And Ronald Reagan found out that not a single dime of the tax that's collected from you, your income tax, ever makes it to the federal budget. It's actually tariffs and all that other stuff that make it to the federal budget. So you getting taxed doesn't pay for anything. Because according to Fruit from a Poisonous Tree, after that 365 days, anything that isn't claimed is abandoned funds. And that just goes to the IRS, which is a private corporation just like the Federal Reserve. Okay? And they are just like any other business. So, and again, and this is why I stopped paying taxes. This is why I won't pay taxes anymore. I mean, what's the point in paying taxes if it's theft? See, make taxation theft again. Now, if you've got a budget and it's got to pay for everything and everybody pays their fair share, now that's everybody contributing. It's the household bill. So it's a much bigger difference than that compared to what our politicians are doing now. And so if you're wanting to know about taxes and so on and so forth, and you want to know how to get out of taxes, quite frankly, if you started filing, you're stuck. Now, if you can make an argument like I have, and I've got documents and evidence and so on and so forth, and if I ever get brought up, I'm gonna be able to prove that I have no confidence and no faith in the system so much that it allows me to withdraw. And that's also my argument for not being considered a U.S. citizen. But there are a lot of fine lines that go through that, because when you get picked up and you're like, are you a U.S. citizen? Nope. Well, where are you from? Well, I'm from the great state of Colorado, because that's where I became native. As I was born, my dad was stationed at Fort Carson, Colorado. And we lived in Colorado Springs. I was born in the hospital there in Colorado Springs. And so, therefore, I am a native Coloradan, although I've spent most of my youth and most of my growing up in Oregon. But when it comes to when it comes to getting picked up by the cops and trying to deal with this, and they sit there and they laugh. But here's the thing: I'm not speaking to the cops. The cops are frontline agents. They don't want to know what they're doing. And I've actually talked to I got to know an undercover, and one of the things that he explained to me, and he asked me to really not say anything, but we're past that point now, and so therefore I feel okay saying it. And one of the things that he said to me was that he says, the first half of police academy, they teach you the Constitution. They teach you everything that you're supposed to abide by the Constitution. The second half of police academy, they teach you how to work around that and to trick people into waiving their rights so that you can take advantage of them and get them to do whatever it is that you want. So these cops are being trained this way. They think it's perfectly fine. They're saying, I'm doing my job as if nothing's wrong. Yet they're following doctrine that and following advice. And if you are a cop, this is something that if this is true in your area. Now this was in LA. This was not in any other city. So the things that go on in LA and San Francisco, I wouldn't expect them to go on in every other state. But this is what I got to learn while being outside while I was in Hollywood for probably about 4 months. I swear to God, I'll never go back to that place again. Anyways, hey Road Dogs, thank you for joining me. Thank you for showing up, and thank you for sharing. So if you have any questions about this, please put them down in the comments. I would love to be able to answer them. This is a very, very thick subject. But again, I'm going to try and put all the links down in the description so that you can follow them, so that you can learn this stuff on your own. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.